So what you're looking at here is the wrong side of a sweater I knit a few years ago. And you can definitely see the horizontal furrows where I've rowed out. This is the wrong side of a swatch that I recently completed. And while you can see that the rowing out is not 100% cured, it's a lot better than it used to be. I'm a continental knitter, and I tension my yarn over my left index finger. When I make a knit stitch, there's always a moment when I'm transferring the stitch where the working yarn is pretty much perpendicular to the needle that's receiving the new stitch. I don't tension my yarn very tightly. I basically just have it wrapped over that finger and loosely held with my other fingers. But the fact that there's this perpendicular angle means that there's less resistance, and it allows the stitch to snug up fully to the needle. You can see that each time I make a stitch, there's a moment where the yarn is pretty much at right angles to the needle. When you make a purl stitch, the working needle enters the stitch from right to left, and the two needles are almost parallel to one another. So the natural tendency is to work at that open angle. And because of this, the angle of the yarn relative to the working needle is much wider, putting a bit more resistance on the working yarn and keeping it from snugging up as fully as a knit stitch does. What I'm trying to do these days is to make sure that when I'm transferring that purl stitch over, that the angle of my needles is less than 90 degrees, a little bit smaller, and that allows my working yarn to be at an angle that's a lot closer to the angle that it assumes when I'm doing a knit stitch. Now, it does take a bit of mindfulness to remember to do this, and I backslide a lot, but with each project this is becoming more the angle that I purl at. And I'm really happy with the results. Now obviously the important thing here is not for anybody to try to match the angles that I work at when I knit and purl, but rather to have a look at your own knitting and see if being more consistent there can make your work a bit more even.